5 disturbing internet mysteries solved by Reddit. For every 5 conspiracy theories that Reddit blunders, they solve 1.
On the 24th of April 2022 at around 3 p.m., 10-year-old Lily Peters left her home to visit her aunt on her own. The aunt's house was just a 3-minute bike ride from Lily's home in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin. And
I think I'll use my Reddit card.
Since she lived with just her
Well, the thing is, like, Reddit are very good at solving stuff unironically, but the problem is they're not allowed to celebrate it anymore, because whenever Reddit gets too brave and, like, they kind of get gloaty, people just always remind them of the Boston bomber stuff and how they ID'd the wrong guy.
Father Alexander, after her parents' divorce, Lily often went to her aunt's house on the weekends to play around. So it wasn't unusual for her to make this journey on her own. Unfortunately, what started off as an ordinary weekend was about to end in a horrific tragedy. Things took a turn for the worse when Alex noticed that it was getting dark and Lily still hadn't come home. It wasn't like her to stay out late. He called his sister, assuming Lily was still at her place. But, to his surprise, she told him Lily had already left over an hour ago. He then called the parents of Lily's friends, hoping she might have stopped at one of their houses on her way back. However, none of them had seen her either. Fearing for the safety of his daughter, Alex began searching the route Lily would have taken.
It's so crazy how easy kids can go missing as well, unironically. Like, I saw that film Prisoners, I think, with Hugh Jackman. Solid film. Solid film. Like, definitely recommend watching it. But it's so funny. Like, I remember, like, my parents telling me, like, I don't know whether this is like a boomer cope. It probably is a boomer cope. But they would always say to me, like,
Top
well, they
10
still...
gnome sightings PLS less than 3.
Thank you, Bird, for the $50. Damn, appreciate that. W's in chat for Bird. Thank you. Top 10 gnome sightings? What is that?
Pyro, you can't watch
What is
this.
this?
You're not allowed within 400 meters of children.
Thank you, AJ, for the 10. Anyways, so, like, my parents had this cope, right? And it was, like, they always said how, oh, when we were young, like 10, you could, like, go outside and, like, you know, you wouldn't have to tell your parents where you are, and you could just, like, you know, run around and go to parks, and it's like, how? You know, and they'll use the cope saying how the world is so much worse now. It is, but also you're acting like there weren't, like, pedophiles around back then as well. Like, they just didn't exist. They just materialized in, like, the year 2000 or something. Like, what?
To and from her aunt's house. He also contacted the police and reported his daughter missing at around 9 p.m. While the authorities didn't issue an Amber Alert, they quickly formed a search party to help look for her in the surrounding area. And
well, there's not an issue now because basically everyone's inside on TikTok and stuff anyway.
After hours of searching, Alex finally discovered the first clue to his daughter's
They still existed, you didn't hear about them as often. Yeah, true.
whereabouts. Her bike, abandoned in a nearby wooded area. But Lily herself was nowhere to be found. Police deployed drones and rescue dogs to search the woods and investigate the hiking trail that ran through the area. Then, at around 8:45 a.m., Alex received the news he'd been dreading all night. Lily was deceased. A volunteer had discovered her body hidden under a pile of...
Parents just used to let their kids run around and not care as long as they got home by the time the street lights came on.
Of leaves.
Yeah, like, I will be honest, like, if I have kids, like, I feel like I'd be kind of too overprotective, right? But that's the worst thing as well. You don't want to be too overprotective of your kids because they don't really learn, they don't really grow. They don't really get, like, life experiences and stuff, that independence.
Just a few feet from the trail. After a brief examination, police ruled her death a homicide and began looking for the perpetrator. Unfortunately, they had...
I hate how I'm talking about having children as well. Like, you can really tell I'm pushing 30 now. Ugh.
Nothing that could lead them in the right direction. That is, until someone made a post about Lily's case in the true crime subreddit. While everyone else was speculating on what could have happened to Lily, user HomesliceNation4 came forward with a crucial piece of information in a now deleted comment that read, "What's scary is I was playing Pokemon Go in the park that day and walking along that very same trail. My stomach turns when I think that I saw that girl in a pink/purple hoodie on her bike with another kid on my way out. I have a suspicion that it could be another kid that did it." Another user called the police tip line to report HomesliceNation4's comment. And to everyone's surprise, this was the breakthrough the investigators needed to solve the case. Because just a few hours later, police arrested Carson Peters Berger, Lily's 14-year-old cousin, as the prime suspect in her murder. Not long after he was taken...
Dude, what the fuck? That looks like a young picture of Keemstar. What the fuck? That's like dead on. Jesus.
Into custody, Carson admitted to everything. However, just what happened to Lily that night was more horrifying than anyone could have ever imagined. According to Carson, he followed Lily as she was heading home and told her to follow him into the woods. He'd been planning.
Wait a minute. Oh, never mind. No, it doesn't. No, actually, never mind. It doesn't look too similar. No, it doesn't look too similar. I was thinking that. I was like, what the fuck? It's like so similar.
Planning this for months. Once they were off the trail, he punched her in the stomach, hit her several times with a large stick, and strangled her until she took her final breath. He then went back home as if nothing had happened. But when he heard about the search for Lily, he panicked and went back into the woods to move her body further from the crime scene and hid it under a pile of leaves. Though, all thanks to one Reddit comment, he was thankfully caught. Given the severity of his crimes and the fact that it was all premeditated, prosecutors decided to try Carson as an adult. He's still in custody awaiting his trial set for sometime in 2026.
I always find it crazy with the legal system how long it takes just to put people on trial, despite the fact that they basically know that they're guilty.
On May 1st, 2013, Reddit user ShadyBusiness15 posted on the What Is This Thing subreddit, seeking answers for a strange device he found inside his power strip. The post read, "Violently blew a fuse in my extension cord, took it apart to see the damage, and found this inside." Alongside this, the OP shared pictures of two circuit boards connected to each other with wires, and
Wait, what blew? A fuse in my extension cord?
what appeared to be a SIM card. He also cross-posted this in the Reddit Bureau of Investigation
The Reddit Bureau of Investigation? There's no way that's real. There's no way that's real. Oh my god. This is why no one takes Reddit seriously, man.
Reddit, where users noticed a microphone on one of the circuit boards and figured this was a spying device of some kind. With one comment providing more details about how it worked.
How did he read that with a straight face, by the way, man?
Your extension cord is a room bug. Someone calls the phone number on that SIM and the extension cord auto answers and listens to the room. Put simply, one of the circuit boards was a cut-down version of a phone that used the SIM to transfer audio from the built-in microphone. The second board was a power delivery module, allowing the device to run directly off of the wall power without needing any batteries. However, this raised more questions than it answered, especially about the OP's true identity, with some users speculating if he was involved in some shady business. After all, why else would someone go through the effort of planting a bug to listen in on his conversations?
That's weird, man. I don't know. I've seen videos, though, to be fair, where it's like, you know how you buy, like, those charging cables online? Like, the cheap ones? You know, it won't be Apple. It'll be, like, a knockoff lightning cable. Like, some of those have, like, little devices inside that can basically download anything. And then also there's ports in, like, airports, for example, that have been tampered with. And if you plug into them to charge your phone, they can basically yoink your data. Yeah, lightning cable in the big 2025, so true. Dude, the one goated thing about Europe is how they clamped down on Apple and said, no, you use USB-C now, like all the normal people.
But according to a later comment, he was just a normal university student who was living in the university.
It's like how you go to hotels, though, and the rooms can be, like, bugged and stuff as well. Because people, like, see you, like, whacking off and stuff, and they sell that online.
University's dorms, and that he took this extension cord from his home when he moved. But also mentioned that there are other people with access to his room who could have planted the bug without his knowledge. With this, the focus shifted towards finding out who planted this in the OP's power strip and why. Some
I don't think it takes your data unless you allow it, but it could just fry your port for fun.
users suggested putting the SIM in a spare phone, but doing so only deepened the mystery further. Apparently, it had a 10-pound credit, suggesting that it was being used at some point. However, it didn't have any contacts, voicemails, or call logs. And judging from the network messages, the device had been active since October 2012. This also helped the OP retrieve the SIM's number, but calling it returned an automated message stating, "The service is now closed, and if you have voicemail, you can turn it on." Nothing else. The OP tried leaving it active in a spare phone as well, but even
They also sell devices to find cameras or mics. Yeah. You've seen those videos, right? Where people go into a hotel room and they've got this, like, scanner thing to see if there's any cameras, like, put in the rooms and stuff. I'm not sure what it works on. Maybe metals or something?
after days of waiting, he didn't receive any calls or messages. It's possible the person who planted it had already gotten the information they needed, or perhaps they found out the OP had discovered it and decided to back off. In either case, the OP's only remaining option was to contact the Sims carrier, O2. Unfortunately, they weren't much help either. He would have needed a police warrant to access the call logs, something he didn't want to deal with. Without access to the call logs, the only real suspects OP had were his own parents. However, he didn't find the spy Sims number in either of their phones when he checked later. This left a single possibility that's...
You think any boomer would be that capable of setting up something that crazy in your room? There's no way.
Also the most likely explanation for the whole thing. Put simply, the spy device was never meant for the OP in the first place.
You can use your phone. It detects the infrared of night vision. It can even see... You can see it in the remote. Oh, I see.
As many on Reddit hypothesized,
yeah,
the
they
bug
use
was likely
infrared as
intended
well.
and used for corporate espionage at some point. From there, it somehow found its way into the OP's home. Maybe one of his parents brought it home from work or purchased it in a corporate clearance sale without realizing what it actually was. But by then, the device had already fulfilled its purpose and wasn't being
Someone in chat makes a good theory. They said the parents didn't do it, but they definitely paid for someone to do it.
used. Unfortunately, while Redditors were quick to identify and solve what the device was, they weren't able to find a concrete answer for who planted it and why. The last update from the OP was in May of 2013. Chances of getting an answer now, over 12 years later, are practically zero.
Wait a minute! The title of this video was Mystery Solved by Reddit. This wasn't solved. You little fibber.
On the morning of August 9, 2018, 66-year-old Susan Rainwater set out on her usual cycling route in Eatonville, Washington. But unlike the countless times she'd followed this routine, that day she didn't come home on time. Worried, her husband David Rainwater went out looking for her, only to come face to face with the aftermath of a tragic accident. Just off the side of the road, David discovered the mangled remains of his wife's bicycle. As he got closer, he saw an injured Susan lying on the ground not far from the bike. Sadly, it was already too late. Susan had succumbed to her injuries and passed away before David could get to her. He eventually gathered himself enough to call the police, who after examining Susan and her surroundings were able to...
I have a theory here that they're going to say it's a hit and run. And then Reddit ID'd the person that was driving the car.
Pyro, the
piece
Reddit
together what
Bureau
had
of
happened.
Invest.
And according to their investigation, this was a classic hit-and-run case. Susan was likely struck from behind by a fast-moving car, resulting in her getting severely injured. However, instead of stopping and helping Susan, the suspect decided to save himself and fled the scene. Unfortunately, there were no witnesses or nearby CCTV cameras leading to...
I would never understand how anyone could do a hit and run after hitting someone. Genuinely. I don't understand that. Like, the guilt you would feel would be more crippling than if you just turned yourself in. Because it's like, if you flee, that's more charges against you as well from, like, a logistical standpoint. But, bruh, like, I remember seeing this one. We had this road safety PSA, public service announcement, called Think. If anyone's from the UK, you might remember this, actually. Yeah, it's called Think. There it is. And there was this one advert, and it was actually just so bad, man. It was like a guy goes to sleep every night, and then there's just a dead kid looking at him, like every time he tries to turn like in his bed to sleep, and the dead kid keeps looking at him, and it was like a child that he ran over, but he actually drove away from. Like, he got away with it, but just the guilt.
investigators with no leads to follow.
Let me see if I can find this, actually. Hang on. I look up, like, Think Road Safety Little Girl or something. That might come up. Think Road Safety. Oh, there's so many of them. Oh, here's the one. I found it. That's pretty quick, actually. Like, it does actually look like it's parody, though, man. Like, you could add a laughter track over this. This is really what we were using to get people to slow down when they're driving, by the way. But yeah, the entire point is just, you know, oh, here's the bit just under the, yep, used him as a little, just to keep the air out. Very nice. It's a good ad, but yeah, like, holy grim. But I guess that's the entire point.
The only clue they found on the crime scene was this one piece of black plastic that likely broke off the suspect's car from the collision.
I show this really grim advert, and then everyone in chat is saying, is that David from Five Nights at Freddy's?
Investigators tried their best, but they weren't able to figure out what this was supposed to be, let alone what car it belonged to. With no other options, one of the troopers at the scene turned to the internet for help, stating, "Troopers and detectives are still looking for a black vehicle believed to be involved in this morning's tragic bicyclist fatality. If you know anything regarding this collision, please call the Washington State Patrol." While this post received little attention on Twitter, someone reposted the query on the What Is This Thing subreddit, where it went viral and received valuable input from hundreds of users.
Bro, that's gonna be the spoiler on someone's car. Some Reddit is just gonna crack down on that.
It didn't take long for Redditors to figure out that this piece came from the car's headlight bezel, as it had the notch used to access the headlight adjusting screws. However,
why is Reddit doing a better job than the police?
Figuring out
How?
what car this belonged to was still going to be a tall order. After all, there are dozens of manufacturers with hundreds of different models. Not to mention aftermarket parts, which would have been practically impossible to track down.
I'm really
But
interested
just when
how
it
they
seemed
find
like
this
all
guy.
hope was
Like,
lost,
even if you ID the car, what are they gonna do? Use that kind of car for every car in the area?
the post reached perhaps the only person capable of identifying the suspect's car model from that tiny broken piece. 2 hours after the
Reddit needs its own police officers. Yeah, they do. It's called the Reddit Bureau of Investigation.
original post was made, user Jeff's Nuts dropped a comment that single-handedly
Imagine a hit and run case where a woman tragically died being solved by a guy called Jeff's Nuts.
brought the search to a close. As it turned out, Jeff was a state inspector in Maryland, where his job was to make sure vehicles were up to code before issuing registration. So he'd seen his fair share of headlight bezels at work. And according to him, the piece police found belonged to a 1988 Chevy Silverado. After spotting the resemblance, users forwarded the information to the investigators, prompting a search for a vehicle that matched this new description. And just 5 days
God,
later,
you know
the
what?
state
One thing I'm so happy about genuinely now, because I've been doing YouTube for a while, I'm so happy I don't have stands, genuinely. Like, I probably have a couple stands, but you know how, like, the Minecraft scene, every third person would just have a profile picture of, like, you know, like Dream and Tommy in it and stuff like that. Like, I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it.
state trooper announced what everyone was waiting for. They had located the vehicle that struck Susan and arrested its owner. The man responsible for her death was 37-year-old
No, I don't have any stands because my audience is genuinely like 95% male. Also, why does that look like Jesse from El Camino? What the hell?
Jeremy Thomas Simon. He first claimed that he had fallen asleep at the wheel and thought that he'd hit a deer instead of a person. However, his story
You low-key filtered your fan base where standing you is nigh impossible. How did I filter my fan base? I didn't do that.
later changed to where he knew he hit a person but didn't get out to help because he, quote, did not want to see a body. It was clear he was just making excuses, since authorities also found a small bag of hard drugs in his car, suggesting he may have been under the influence at the time of the crash. In the end, he was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. Not exactly a harsh penalty for a deadly hit and run, but it is better than nothing. Especially considering that if the Reddit user Jeff hadn't identified the make and model of Simon's vehicle and
What's he wearing? Someone in chat said it's a vest, so it's like you can't really self-harm.
posted his findings to Reddit, there's a good chance he would have gotten
What did he get? 4.5 years?
away with it entirely.
Was that 4.5 years? Is that it?
The influence at the time of the crash. Also, did not want to see a body. It was clear he was just making excuses, since authorities also found a small bag of hard drugs in his car, suggesting he may have been under the influence at the time of the crash. In the end, he was sentenced to 4.5 years in prison. Not exactly a harsh penalty for a deadly hit and run, but it is better than nothing. Especially considering that if the Reddit user Jeff hadn't identified the make and model of Simon's vehicle and posted his findings to Reddit, there's a good chance he would have gotten away with it entirely.
4 years for using drugs and killing someone is insane. Yeah.
In October 2024, someone noticed that one of their electrical outlets
Like, surely if you've got drugs on you, like, that increases the charge.
in their home looked different from the others.
4 years for driving on drugs? That's the worst thing. Like, could you imagine? Like, that would actually make sense.
It looked like it had a camera inside, but it wasn't super obvious. So they turned to Reddit and posted photos of the outlet, hoping someone would either confirm or deny their suspicions. They also explained their situation further in a comment reading, I've had a stalker in my apartment broken into in the past.
Uh-oh.
I got a camera detector for peace of mind, not knowing it would read anything, but it led me to this and detected radio waves and reflected back with the infrared.
Uh-oh.
The bottom ground looks different than the other GFCI plugs in the rest of the complex. Right away, several people...
Oh, that's a camera. Bro, try and plug something in there, first of all. It's blocked.
Agreed with the OP in that something was definitely off about the outlet. Then, just 40 minutes after the post went up, one user confirmed the OP 100% had a hidden camera in their home by tracking down the exact model for...
Someone was faking it for attention. I mean, it is Reddit, so that is also possibly viable.
...sale online. And according to its product page, it's a wireless camera that could transmit 4K video completely over Wi-Fi.
Bruh, it's not even makeshift. You could just buy that, bruh.
Given the OP's history with a stalker, the same person was likely behind installing the hidden camera as well. Many strongly suggested the OP get out of the house and call the police. Unfortunately, what happened next remains a mystery. The account that made the post was a throwaway the OP created solely for this purpose. And after confirming their suspicions, they never posted any new updates. In July of 2012, user Delver of Secrets Reddit account made a post in r/askreddit looking for answers on a strange encounter they recently had. It stated, "Today, a homeless-looking man handed me $50 and this note. Do any of you have any idea what it means? Dear Reddit, I work in New York City and was dragged into a very curious situation today. I was taking the 1 train from Midtown to the financial district, and as usual..."
I can't ever look at the New York Metro normally without thinking of Hoyt Street with Joshua Blockman. I am mind broken.
The train was pretty packed. I bumped into a raggedy dressed man as we got on, and he shot me a quick smile.
Someone said because it was posted a day ago, it was Liver King he bumped into. Okay.
I thought nothing of it until he went to get off at 14th Street, and he handed me a $50 bill along with a note. Before I could even open my mouth to ask him a question, he was gone. Below, you find pictures of both the front and back of the note. I've been looking at the note all day.
To be fair, 50-50, it's someone LARPing as a homeless person, or it's genuinely just someone completely off their rocker.
And needless to say, I have no idea what it means. It's handwritten on a 3x3 square piece of...
Someone just said in chat, WTF is Hoyt Street? It's where he always films. He's on Hoyt Street. Joshua Block on Hoyt Street. Look at him, he's so happy. He always posts a little video saying, Hoyt Street.
...of paper with no identifying marks and no watermarks. There's a hand-drawn grid, and at a couple of spots, the cells of the grid are combined. The note has random characters written throughout it, and the bottom quarter is filled with random shapes.
They're not terminally online. Do you know, like, whose stream chat you're in right now?
Shapes and numbers. Maybe I'm just reading way too far into things, and he was just another
don't act like you've got a life. Come on,
crazy New Yorker. But I figured it would be neat to see if anyone has run into this similar situation. Do any of you have any idea as to what the note says, if anything? After taking a good look at both the note and the $50 bill, some users figured out that the note was what's known as a bifid cipher, and deciphering it revealed a message that read, "There's plenty more money to make. Figure this out and prepare to meet July 19, 56 and 6 hot dog stand outside Rue 57 Cafe. Ask for Mr. Input." However, before anyone had the time to figure out the true meaning behind this note, Delver of Secrets received a coded message on Reddit. It was likely from the same guy that handed him the note earlier that day. When decoded, this message read, "You have managed to find the message with the help of friends. You changed the rules, now so will I. July 12, 4 p.m.
Could you imagine this all leads to him going to a dead drop with a USB stick? He puts it in his computer and it just gives him like 500 Reddit gold.
Find the Blue Jay at 6.5 and 56 and tell him you are the last." This was packed...
That was an undercover cop? No, it's just someone incredibly bored.
With clues...
He probably binge-watched Mr. Robot and he's like, I'm him.
Pointing in multiple directions. For starters, 6.5 and 56 corresponded to 6.5 Avenue on 56th Street in New York. And at that location, there was a salon named Gotham Skincare. This then meant...
Okay, he definitely watched like Batman the Animated Series when he was high or something and he saw like Mark Hamill as the Joker and he's like, okay, that's me.
To believe that this whole thing was a marketing stunt for something related to Batman. Especially since... Since the date given in the original note, July 19th, was 1 day short of the release date for The Dark Knight Rises. One person even called the marketing company for that movie in hopes of getting them to admit the truth.
It's like when Internet Historian did that video, and there was a place called, like... There's a place in Turkey, I think, and it's called Batman. Yeah, like, bruh. Let me lower the camera. Bruh, it's like... There's... There is... Like, it's actually just called Batman. Like, there's not even an accent or anything. It's just Batman.
So basically, I was one of the people who got caught up in the whole homeless man give me $50. We had to figure out some sort of code. So after staying up for hours and reading all the comments, I definitely came to the conclusion that this reeks of marketing campaign. And I have a sneaking suspicion that it's a certain company. Hey guys, what's up? Alright, so it's 9/16
Yeah, I wish I was born in Batman.
here in New York. And I'm about to call Leveraged Marketing Corporation of America. If you look up the address that we're all supposed to meet at later today at 4, this is actually a marketing agency that's right next to it. So it just makes sense that it might be them. And the
Batman.
Dark Knight thing just makes sense too because the movie's coming out so soon. And hi, how are you?
Oh, is this Batman?
I'm calling to make sure that everything is going to be set up for the Dark Knight campaign later today.
What is the Dark Knight campaign? Is it New York City?
Yeah, it's actually right next to your office at about 4 o'clock today, actually.
I see. Yes, I know what that is. Please give Margie a call. I'm traveling.
He just admitted to knowing about it. I don't know. You figure it out.
While this didn't lead to anything substantial, Reddit users
I
found
feel they'd be cleverer than that. They'd be smarter, right? Like, they'd have, like, a code word or something like that they'd use.
the next clue hidden within the Reddit message. You see, the username that sent the message was 222-0944-379. One user converted this to an IP address, and it led to Fort Huachuca in Arizona, a military base that's primarily focused on intelligence training. So, could it be that Delver of Secrets was being recruited as a spy or something along those lines? For some, this was certainly a possibility. However, another user discovered that a spy exhibition was happening at the nearby Discovery Times Square Museum on July 12th. Maybe this was a marketing stunt for that instead. But this idea was also shot down by another user who claimed to work for the museum, stating that they had nothing to do with this. With no other leads, a group of curious New York-based Redditors decided to meet at the specified location on July 12th to see if anything would
Bro, could you imagine if it was like the secret meetup for that Shia LaBeouf He Will Not Divide Us thing?
actually happen. However, despite dozens of people showing up, including Delver of Secrets, no one noticed anything out of the ordinary and had to go back in disappointment. Now, if this was some legitimate espionage-related matter, a large crowd would have instantly scared off anyone planning to meet Delver of Secrets at that location. So, the whole thing was kind of pointless in that regard. But on the other hand, the gathering all but confirmed that this wasn't some marketing stunt. Because if it were, the media attention and large crowd would have been the perfect moment for a big reveal.
There's like one guy in chat and he just keeps saying periodically every 5 minutes, "Dear Reddit."
That never happened. Then, something happened that no one saw coming.
Nothing. Nothing ever happens.
On July 13th, Delver of Secrets removed everything from his post and replaced it with a single ominous passage reading, "Received a phone call today threatening violence against me and my family, going as far as to name members of my family and their addresses unless I delete this post. The caller also told me not to show up on the 19th and to inform anyone planning to show up on the 19th that nothing would happen. This
Nothing ever happens.
will be my last message from this account before I delete it. I'll also be changing my number later today. I am sorry if a resolution to this never happens, but I'm not willing to risk my family's safety for a few extra dollars." With that, Delver of Secrets vanished from the internet.
What the hell? What happened there then? Was he, do you think he was like, do you think he was contacted and he was paid money and he was like, you know, some guy was like, "I'll give you $500 to just say you were threatened and stuff because I want to keep this going"?
While Reddit did solve layers of coded messages and uncover clues hidden within other clues, they were ultimately left with nothing but
I like how it says XD at the bottom. Well, so the guy who set this up is an actual idiot. Gives it to loads of people. They crack the code. He's amazed they cracked the code. And then he starts threatening people. Like, what?
speculation and an
What?
unsolved mystery.
What? What is that? I thought that was FouseyTube. That's really weird. What?